Welcome back, everyone. Today I'll be talking about Java and your model and how it's all going to work together. So you can see I've put together a whole bunch of different classes for my model. None of them are really fleshed out yet. I'm just going to go through my thought process with you as I start to add attributes and make all the connections between these classes. So I'm building the location class right now. I'll walk you through my thought process. At any given location, there's going to be a zombie, and there's either going to be a zombie or an item or both. There's also going to be an exit location, which is a Boolean, and in most of the times that's going to be false, but in one location it'll be true. You might not need this on yours. Again, all of this is just my thought process and what I am doing right now. Towards the end of this video, I might end up deleting that, but we'll just build it for now as something that I think I'll use. So again, I'm going to go ahead and add all my getters and setters. I found out how to insert them where I want. You just put your cursor where you want them, and then I'll add all my getters and setters. I'll add an empty constructor, and then oh, this is not a zombie, this is a location. Sorry. And then I will be adding the methods that it recommends you add. So I'll add the equals and hashcode methods. Keep in mind that these methods will need to be rewritten if you add or remove attributes. So you want to do them towards the end or when you think your project's getting finished or your model's getting finished. Same thing with the toString. You'll want to add, you'll need to, if you ever update the attributes in your class, update your toString method. I like to always put a big comment line here saying these are my methods, the methods I've written, not just plain old getters and setters. It helps me keep things organized, and I always put them at the bottom of my class. So in this case, we'll have a public method that returns a Boolean. Does this location have a zombie? And if my zombie in my class is null, then we'll return false. Otherwise, we'll return true. There's other ways you can do this. I'm just going to show you the most straightforward ways. If you want to go like advanced, you can do something like return zombie equals null, or does not equal null. That would do the exact same thing. Because this statement's going to return, evaluate to a true or false, whether that's true or not false, will just be returned. So again, it's whether you want to be explicit in what you're saying or you want to be fancy. And some people can still consider this explicit. So we'll do, again, another one as item, and we'll just return item is not equal to null. And when I'm referring to item, I'm referring to the item that is the item in my class, right? I have this instance of an item in my location class, and that'll either be null or it'll be not null based on the contents of it. Going back to my map, you can see my map has a location matrix. This is how you put that together. The two brackets say it's an array of arrays, which means, I guess, just a list of lists. Not quite the exact same thing in Java, but that's what we're going to use, or we're going to use arrays. I might get fancy and use a list in another place, but an array is fine here. In my initialize method, which I've written, I've said, okay, I'm going to have 9 rows and 9 columns. Let's populate our locations. So I'll say for int, I'll say row get 0 as long as row is less than 9, increment row. And then I have to loop again over columns, so I'll have an int col 0 as long as call. Oh, sorry, not 9. I should have num rows here. And as long as call is less than the number of columns, then I'll increment the column count. And this will traverse my matrix. I'll iterate over each row and each column starting at 0, 0. You can think of it as coordinates on a map. If you have a map split up into grids, 0, 0 might be your bottom left corner, and 9, 9 might be the top right corner. And then, or a coordinate plane in math, you have your x and your y. We'll say rows are x and columns y. We're going to start at 0, 0, move our way up, populating that, and then when we finish populating column, we'll move on to the next row. So at each spot in my matrix, I'll need to create a new location. I'm just going to give it L as the signifier because I can't think of another one, a better identifier or variable name. So I'll say L dot set column is my column. L dot set row will be my row. And then I need some way of putting zombies in various locations. I can hard code it and say if it's row 3 and column 5, put a zombie there. If it's row 7 and column 2, put a zombie there. I am going to be a little fancy and randomize where my zombies go and my items go. So let's create a list of zombies. Nope. And you notice I use control space a lot because it is incredibly useful. So let's create a bunch of zombies. And we can even use a number here. Let's say we have 9 by 9, 81 tile or locations. Let's say there are zombies at 30 of them. Yeah. Let me pause here for a second and think about how I want to do this. Okay, I thought about it. I'm not going to do this perfectly where I'm going to always have 30 zombies. I might have less. I will never have more. I don't need a list. I'll create a number of items as well here. I'll say I have 15. And for any given location, I'm going to write code that's effectively flip a coin, a 50-50% chance of being true and a 50-50% chance of being false. So to do that, I'm going to use math.random. And I can read about this. It's been a while since I've used it. And so it looks like it's going to return a double value that's anywhere between 0.0 and 1.0. So it could be 0.3, 0.5, 0.8, 0.2. So let's use math.random and we'll say if that random value is greater than 0.5, then we'll add a zombie. So we'll create a new instance of a zombie. Zombie Z gets new zombie. And we'll set the zombie's damage. Let's use random again. Let's use maths random again. And let's multiply this by 10. Let's create a constant. It probably shouldn't be in this class, so I'm not going to create a constant yet, just for my my quick brainstorming. I'm going to create a int here called max zombie damage. And again, this probably should be a constant, probably the top of the zombie class. So let's actually add it at the top of the zombie class as a public static int max zombie damage. and we'll make it final, so it can't be changed. So back in map, let's get rid of that one. And we'll say, so anywhere between 0 and max zombie damage, which will be 10, that will be the damage we set. And this is going to create a double, so I'm going to cast it as an integer. So it's going to round it for me effectively, since the damage that I'm trying to set has to be an integer. And this equation, because it's a double multiplied by an integer, the calculated type of the result is going to be a double. So I'm going to round that to the nearest integer, and that's how you do that, by casting it. And to cast, you just put the int in parentheses in front of what you want to cast. Casting can be a problem in some cases, so don't always do it. Let's also set zombies' hit points. Let's max zombie hit points, and let's make that 30. So there'll be some really weak ones, because it could be as low as, well, actually it could be as low as 0, so I'm going to make that change in map. And also for zombie damage, let's just add 1 to make sure it's at least 1. And in that case, we should probably make the damage 9 and this 29. So that means it's between 1 and 10 and 1 and 30 respectively. So back to my initialization class, or method in the map. I have my zombies damage. I'll set the hit points as, again, I'm going to cast this as an int of pretty much what I did for the damage, but I'm going to do it for hit points. And you'll notice my order of operations here. If I had the cast of int on math.random, it would always return, almost always return 0, and in very, very, very few instances return 1. That's because the result of math.random would be rounded by the integer casting. So it's going to either be 0 or 1. And I think int actually just truncates it doesn't round, it actually just cuts off the decimals. So you would get, 0.9 would be cut off to 0. So if I did that cast on math.random, I would get 0 all the time, and so almost all of my zombies would have 0 hit points and 0 damage. And again, I'm adding the 1 at the very end, because this math.random could be 0.0001 times the hit points would be very close to 0. The int would cut off the rounding, and so I have to make sure I add 1 after all of that math is done. If I added 1 here, then it would actually, that would probably work. But if I added 1 on math.random, it would cause problems. Order of operations in Java is what you think it would be. The whole PEMDAS things, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. So it follows your standard rules of math. So now I got to make sure I add the zombie to my location, and I've done that. And then I'm going to copy this code, and my computer's frozen. Sorry. Let this load for a second. I'll see if I can pause the recording.